In this video, I'm going to talk about my autism and how I unmasked it and how I really gained confidence throughout my life. Now, the biggest shift hasn't really come until this last year of my life, but things have dramatically shifted for me since about 2021. So, first, I want to give a background to things and how I experienced autism and confidence in my earlier life. And this is also a trigger warning for mental health issues, as a lot of my confidence, or rather lack thereof, derived from the trauma that I endured. And so I mentioned before that I had a lot of dissociation and DID, and that I also had suicidal ideation. And so I didn't really want to be here, and as a people pleaser, I was just trying to kind of be a person for other people. So I also didn't realize I had autism until 2022. So this is more like a perspective that I have now, but I had no idea what was going on when I was growing up. I always had a hard time interacting with other people, and just didn't feel very confident. A lot of it was because I was suicidal and I didn't want to live. And what really stressed me out, like being an autistic person, I really wanted to control, feel like I had more control over situations, feel like there was a structure and a routine, because I felt very out of body. I know now I felt more spiritually connected, and I didn't really relate to the physical world. And so I wanted things to be very regimented so that I felt safer, basically. Like, it felt like there was too much choice, too much option going on, but at the same time not enough. Like, everything was just very limited in the physical constraints of our body. And so I remember one thing that really stressed me out and that I wasn't confident with, that really differed me from my peers. And what I thought what was happening was I was just shy. Like, that's how I characterized myself. I was shy and sad. But I remember recess really stressed me out, because instead of in the classroom they told you what to do, or even if it was a more open-ended thing, it was I don't know, it was a specific amount of time and a specific thing. But I didn't like playing with people at recess, and it really stressed me out because it was just so open-ended. So I would just sit around the corner and cry, where the teachers wouldn't see me. And I didn't feel confident interacting with my peers. It felt confusing to me. I didn't really feel like I related to anyone. And I felt really insecure about this. In grade school, I often would just stay inside the classroom and help the teachers organize things, because I love organizing things. That brought me a lot of joy, and it was structure and control, and I could do something and didn't have to talk to anyone, because the teacher's just doing their own thing. But they would often just, encourage me to go out to recess, and I didn't want to. And so I felt really embarrassed and insecure, because I'm well, clearly no one else is doing this, and this isn't the norm. This isn't typical. And so what I ended up doing was finding a group of people to be around and just copying everything they did, because I'm okay, well, at least now I'm doing what I'm supposed to. But I didn't feel like myself. I didn't even know who I was at all. I didn't have any self-concept of who I am. So I just tried to, because I was dissociated from myself, because what I realized is not only was I masking around other people, but I masked when I was alone. There was never a time in my life until last summer that I ever truly unmasked by myself. So when I was by myself, it was a bit of a relief, because there wasn't any social pressures to smile or laugh at things or hold yourself a certain way, because that was really a big issue too later on in life, was that I was holding my body in a certain way, which I'll get into, but it was from insecurity. Is that when I was alone by myself, I didn't, need to smile or perform, but I wasn't connecting with myself. I wasn't like having a fun time per se. Like I would never like make funny faces or laugh or smile or just like enjoy my own company. Like I didn't like sing or dance by myself, which I'll kind of get into like those interests of mine later on as well and how I interacted with that. But I never was unmasked even when I was with myself. So instead, it was like a relief to be in such heavy dissociation and not need to perform socially. So instead, I was just completely disconnected from myself and just really dissociative. Like more like when I was a teenager, I would just I would just watch things constantly. I guess even as a kid, I would watch a lot of TV. I didn't feel like a person. I felt like I just an observer, which felt like a huge relief to not need to try to be a person in social situations. But I didn't feel like me engaging with media. It felt like I was the media almost. Like that was my reality, not my body. Um, so that was really interesting and just sad in general. I laugh about it because it's like such a relief to be where I am now, and it was just very uncomfortable. So, what I did have though is I did feel some solidarity with, particularly with, I have a brother and I have a cousin, and we would play together, and I felt very safe, like, I guess kind of as much as I could be myself being around them. Like, we would play video games all the time and computer games, and we would make up, play pretend games. But even with that, I felt insecure later on in life because I never really wanted to participate in the same way they did. I more wanted to like run things. Like I would watch them play video games, but I wouldn't play as much. I mean, I still played a lot and more by myself, but like I more felt like I was like observing things with them, or like if we ever played like a make-believe game, I would be the one administering the game and they'd be like the ones playing it. And so later on in life I became insecure about that. I'm like, what's wrong with me? I don't want to like do the things. Like I would rather watch things. Like I get a lot of joy from observing people and seeing them have fun. And that's still how I feel in a lot of ways, which I felt insecure about. Like I'm like, oh, maybe that's just me dissociating. And it's true, I was dissociative at that point in time. But I realize even now to this day, I really like watching people do things. And yeah, like for example, the video games I really like to play are ones where there's a really, I don't know the technical terms for it, but like there's straightforward things you're supposed to do, levels, and you just do it. For me, while I like watching people play games like this, I don't like watching more or like playing more open-ended games, except Minecraft. I really love Minecraft. But I don't like open world games where you can just kind of do anything, create anything. I don't like a lot of storylines or plot. I just want to do the things and a lot of action. So even like more in like D&D, for example, while I would like watching that, I wouldn't enjoy playing that because I don't enjoy coming up with characters like that or like what I'm doing, but I really like watching people do that. So I had a lot of insecurity because I was like, even though this feels like what I like to do, I'm like, but I'm not doing what other people are doing. And so that made me feel like insecure. There's something wrong with me, or like something I was missing, or almost like it was something I needed to heal, but it's not. So yeah, back to kind of, yeah, I mean, just having friends in school, I would just kind of do what they were doing. And at one point, like, I kind of shared some trauma I was going through, but it wasn't, like, believed by the peers I was interacting with at the time. So I felt very insecure, like, sharing that. So I felt even more like I can't really be myself. But I've kind of gone in depth with that in a different video. So moving on to, like, more, like, high school, and back to what I was saying about my body, is that I felt really insecure about my appearance. And for me, that really manifested in, well, I didn't know I was trans until I was like 18. And I had always, like, throughout my life been really complimented on my appearance, like, since I was a child. So I was just really used to, well, it's like I felt like my worth and value, because again, I didn't want to live. And so I felt I'm valuable to other people if I can be a people pleaser and smooth things over, make them happy. I'm valuable because I get straight A's, I'm a good student, and that seems to be like worth something in this life. And I also thought I was valuable because people consistently throughout my life would compliment me on my appearance. And so I thought that was like added value to who I was, because again, I didn't feel like a person. I didn't want to be here. And so I really kind of fed into that in high school, because I kind of started developing my own sense of style. And while I realized I was like alternative, I didn't even feel like that felt too close to home to like who I really am. So that felt like I couldn't actually act or like dress as alternative as I was. Like when I was 15, I wanted to get snake bites, and I didn't until I was 20, because again, it felt like too close to who I thought I really was. And I was insecure, and I was worried like, oh, what if it's a phase or not something I really want? And I was just really worried about how people would judge me. So when I was 14, 15, and ninth grade, I started wearing makeup, and I became really insecure about it. Though I would put like lip gloss on in the car and then like wipe it off on the way to school. I felt so embarrassed, like, because I didn't want to be perceived, which I really account to autism as well. Like, I didn't want to be perceived like as a person. It made me feel very uncomfortable, because I didn't know who I was. I was really dissociative, and just being alive was so uncomfortable. I didn't really want people to notice me, but it was so uncomfortable not being myself as well. It was just such a struggle and so much confliction. And so that happened for a long time, maybe like most of ninth grade, where I'd put makeup in the car and then wipe it off on the way to school. And then I realized too, like, the makeup that I liked didn't really align with like some of the makeup that other people were wearing at school. A lot of what I was interested in was, I started watching drag queens at that time, and in hindsight, I realized I felt safer with that kind of expression, because for me, like, I'm a really feminine man, which isn't to say that's necessarily what drag queens are, but I felt like instead of trying to look like a woman, I could wear really intense makeup, and I felt more myself, because it felt more similar to a drag queen, like, in my mind. So that made me feel safer. Like, I think one of the first things of makeup I loved to wear was, I had this pink lip liner, and I would wear it as eyeliner, this pink lip liner, instead of on my lips. I'd wear it as eyeliner, and it just felt very me. It was just a subtle, it wasn't, that much makeup, but it felt really amazing to me, and it felt like me. But again, I felt so insecure about it. I felt like people were gonna say things to me. Now, interestingly enough, there was only one time in my whole like high school time that anyone ever said anything to me, which was like in 12th grade, and they're like, oh, are you wearing makeup for like a particular reason? Like maybe I'm in a play or something. I just said, no, I'm not, I'm just wearing it for me. It wasn't even like a negative comment, and most of the time people would just like compliment me like on what I'm wearing, or how I'm, my makeup or my clothes. So basically, like, I started wearing really intense makeup. Like, I love to wear black lipstick, I love to wear just lots of colors, just really big expressive makeup looks. And I also felt very insecure, like, about my skin. Like, I had a lot of acne as a teenager, and so I just felt like I needed to wear makeup, like foundation in particular, because I felt really insecure. And I remember like looking at myself in the mirror and just like trying to like get rid of all the pimples, and I felt very obsessive over it in a very dysregulating way that was just so frustrating and upsetting to me. Like, I couldn't bear to look at myself in the mirror. And it was already hard enough because I didn't recognize myself in the mirror because I had such strong depersonalization. But when I would look at myself in the mirror, whether I was wearing makeup or not, regardless of what people had said to me that day or not, I hated my appearance. I hated how I looked. I felt like it was never good enough. Like, people have often throughout my life complimented me on having very long eyelashes, and when I put on a lot of mascara, like, they would even like touch my eyebrows. But whenever I look at my eyelashes, I was like, but they could be longer. They're not long enough, right? And so like everything never felt like enough. And that's how I viewed my body as well, is that I've always been a pretty thin person. And also as a high schooler, I hadn't had top surgery yet, and I have a very large chest. I had like a triple D chest, and I have a very thin waist, and people would compliment me on my appearance very often, on how thin I was, on how I looked. And so I felt like that was, again, my worth and value in society. So when I looked at myself in the mirror, I never felt thin enough, because I'm like, well, people would like me even more. I'd be even more worthy and valuable as a person. I'd be even more accepted as like doing the right thing, because I felt like a wrong person in general, like with my autism. And so whenever I looked at myself, I never looked at myself kindly or with compassion or with admiration. I looked at myself with hatred and disgust, and I would pinch my stomach and think, if only I could be thinner, then people would like me even more. And so what happened is that I always held my stomach in a very unhealthy way when I was in school. I always had my posture in a very unhealthy way, to actually have your posture, to like have my chest out the most, have my stomach in the most, like have my like back curved. And I was constantly like posing. Like, I can't even physically do it anymore without causing myself so much pain. And I didn't realize how much pain I was causing myself, because I also had chronic pain, but I dissociated from it. So that was like a whole nother thing. So I felt so incredibly insecure, and it was like the more people complimented me, which just was very constant, the more insecure I felt, because it felt like I needed to uphold something, and I never felt good when I actually thought about myself or looked at myself. So that was all very disappointing and upsetting. And yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed like my style in general. Like, I wore like 6-inch heels to school most days, and for some reason no one was really dress coding anyone, and so I always wore like the lowest cut shirts possible, and I always wear crop tops and very short skirts, because I felt like a drag queen, and it made me feel more comfortable in my gender expression, because I felt like hyper feminine, basically. And I didn't realize I was trans at the time either. But even with all of that, it was just a constant like monitoring myself of how I'm standing, how I'm sitting, how I'm looking. And again, it's not that anyone even like ever said anything unkind to me or ever made fun of me. In my grade in particular, I never witnessed like any bullying, which I realize is really rare, and definitely did happen in that school I went to in general, just like not in my grade for some reason, or at least I was never exposed to it. So yeah, that's kind of about that. And I also just felt very unconfident about eating as well, which I'll do like a whole nother video probably about, like a eating disorder, where I had binge eating disorder, and I have such like really, really fast metabolism. And so when I would binge on something in particular, I wouldn't be hungry for more sustainable food. So the more I binged, it was like the more I lost weight. So that was really disturbing and upsetting, and I felt just so much guilt and shame. And I also, like, again, maybe mention in more a video about food, like I had ARFID, like with autism, and like the texture of food and what I was eating, like just so much issues with food. I didn't feel confident with food, and I just didn't feel confident in like maintaining my life and maintaining my body and my space and my health, because I didn't want to be here, and it just all felt like a drag. It all felt terrible and like so annoying that I'm in such a limiting world that needs to continue to be maintained. And so that was just all very frustrating. So that's basically where I was at by the time I was 18 so far in my life. So going on from then, this will kind of be like 18 till 24 basically. So my more earlier adulthood is that I didn't have a plan after high school. I didn't want to exist. It felt like that was what I needed to accomplish, and you don't have to go to college, and I just didn't do anything after that. I didn't want to be living, I didn't want to be here. And so I became very numb, very dissociative. I stopped interacting with people. It was just awful. I did start to come more into my, like, I identified as being trans, like I came out to myself basically, and as being queer. And so that made me feel more comfortable. I cut my hair to kind of how it's like now, but it was short in the back as well. I felt more comfortable with that. I bought a binder. And so that was pretty good. I felt a little more like myself, but again, I never knew how to stop masking. So I did get into relationships, like between the age of 19 and 25. I was dating people, for about 6 years, and I just got into a lot of relationships that really didn't serve me, that really increased my masking. And since I had such a lack of identity, a lack of confidence in myself, I didn't really want to be here, I just kind of put my identity on other people and just became a person for other people. So that really included like me toning things down, like even like my trans identity and my want to transition. I thought I kind of had to give that up for other people. I thought I had to give up being polyamorous for other people who were monogamous, again, which were relationships I was choosing to be in, that just were very unhealthy for me. So it was really stressful. And also when I think I started maybe at 16 or 17, I started posting on social media, and have continued to do so throughout my life since then. And what I really liked doing, well, I did makeup videos and like makeup tutorials, and that was really fun. But like even me speaking was really hard, and like watching back and editing the videos was just really painful for me to like observe myself. I also was making singing videos, and I don't think I made any like choreographed dancing videos, but I had choreographed things. Like I did ballet for 14 years into my childhood, and I love choreographing. But so while I would never like dance to a song for fun, I would choreograph, but I felt very perfectionistic about it. So I felt so insecure, so not confident. And when I was doing like my makeup tours, I hated listening back to my voice. I hated watching back videos of me dancing. I loved singing, but I hated watching back videos of me singing. And what I got into as well was like Musically at the time. And so I liked making videos like that, which were actually really fun for me. I really liked actually watching those back to some extent. But when I was watching them, it was like I would compliment myself, but from a very perspective of like a societal perspective, and thinking I'm good because I look a certain way or act a certain way. So I was just like being really judgmental and not like unconditionally loving myself. It's just a very self-esteem based instead of self-compassion based adoration I had for myself. And I just also realized at that time, like as an adult, that my appearance, that people were complimenting me not just in like terms of like being pretty or beautiful or something, but in terms of like sexual appeal. And again, that brought me a lot of like validation and like feeling more like a real person. And for me, I just love sexuality in general. I think just the idea of like sexuality and sexual things is really beautiful and wonderful, and I just identify as a very sexual person. I enjoy just watching things that are more sexual, not just in terms of like adult content, but just like in the way people present themselves and move. I find it very artistic and beautiful and enticing. And so that's something I enjoy to present myself as well. But I was viewing it as like, again, the same as like people complimenting my appearance, just in terms of like it just made me more and more insecure, because I thought like I was tying my worth and value to being sexually desirable, basically, which in particular made me very insecure because again, I'm trans, and I didn't have top surgery at this time. I had it when I was, let's see, when did I have it? When I was 26? I think when I was 26. So at this time, I like also feared that I would stop feeling as real as a person because I wouldn't get the same type of interactions that I was having, like presenting as a woman, basically, because I didn't really present like as a man. I did do a lot of makeup with like beards. I love putting beards on. I'm so happy that I have facial hair now, and I'm so happy to like be able to grow a beard. For me, I think it'll just take a bit longer. Like stuff does grow and I do shave it off, but I want like a thick beard. I'm so excited. I love facial hair so much. And anyways, yeah, I just felt very insecure about everything I was doing. I didn't like looking at myself in the mirror. I didn't really like watching things back, like except really my Musical.lys. I liked watching those back, but I still just had this very judgmental way of how I was viewing myself. And I just hated my body, like not only for how it looked in terms of wanting it to look even better, even more perfect in a societal view, but I also hated my body for having me in chronic pain and having me in mental pain as well, that always got worse throughout my life. So yeah, I just didn't really feel confident again, like in my dating life, because what I was doing was being a person for other people. And so I didn't really have any boundaries. I didn't really state my preferences, or if I did and it went poorly, I would just hide it. So I want to do a whole nother video on like kind of what I've learned through dating so far. Because I'm just very excited. Like, even though those experiences were so awful, I'm just really glad to have the perspective I have now, because I know going forward, the energy that I'm putting out into the world and that I want to interact with. So I'm very happy for that. But a huge shift happened in my masking and confidence when I was 24, so in 2021, because I went through autistic burnout, basically at the end of a really tough relationship for me. I just physically gave out, and autistic burnout is really serious. It's the equivalent in a lot of symptoms and after effects to a traumatic brain injury in terms of really increasing your sensory input. So it's like sensory issues and things feeling overwhelming, and also really changing like your mentality. So what happened for me is I physically could not people please after that. I physically could not mask. And I didn't even know I was autistic at this point in time when I had this autistic burnout. But it was just really devastating, and I couldn't mask, I couldn't people please. All I had left was like dissociation, and I didn't like know how to interact in the world after that. I had to relearn everything. I had to relearn how to eat, how to cook, how to shower, how to drive, how to talk to people. Like, it was really intense. And so what happened after that is that about 6 months later, I realized I had autism, which was helpful because I was already, for like a few years previously, yeah, like for 2 years before that, I had started what I believed would be like my forever career as a behavior technician in applied behavioral analysis, in in working with kids with autism. But what I realize now too is I went to college before this point in time as well. I had just graduated earlier that year. I got a bachelor's in community psychology, and I really wanted to heal myself and help other people's heal. Psychologically was like my plan, but I felt a lot of insecurity like when I was a kid. Like I never raised my hand until 5th grade, but then once I did, like I kind of like was always the person who talked the most in class and just always had a lot to say. And so I really did start to grow like a sense of identity in college because I started learning about oppression and bigotry, which I was not aware was really happening before that point in time, specifically about like class and racism and fat phobia. Like I understood like things more queer related, especially because, you know, gay marriage wasn't even like legal until I was a senior in high school. But that really helped me like get more of an identity and a little more confidence in myself. But again, it was like based on I do well in school, I get a 4.0, therefore I have worth and value. Oh, I have a lot to say and very strong opinions, and I argue back with everyone, especially my teachers in school, so therefore I'm valuable. So it was still just not like a compassionate way to view myself and not sustainable because it was based on external things instead of an internal confidence, right? So back to well, at this point it was 2022. I realized I had autism, and that was really huge because I basically retrospectively figured out what happened to me when I had that autistic burnout. And now I couldn't mask anymore because I didn't know I was masking any type of like fidgeting basically. And so I started accommodating myself. I also realized at that time I had DID, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and POTS in 2022 when I was 26. And so this was just really, or 25. So that was just really huge for me. And that really helped me gain more of an identity of like, at least knowing where I'm at, like where I stand. Like at 17, I realized I had anxiety, depression, and PTSD, but I didn't know all these other things. And so I'm like, well, at least I know where I'm starting out now. Like I want to feel like a real person, and at least I know like kind of what I'm dealing with now, because I just didn't know what was happening previously. And so I started accommodating myself. I got a walker for myself, I got a body braid, I got jewelry, I got fidget toys. I would allow myself to like rock back and forth and to flap my hands, and I felt so incredibly much better in my life and like as a person. Like this felt incredible. And interestingly enough, that really changed after my spiritual awakening, and it's changed so much now, but it was so important for me to have that point in time. And I did feel really good working with kids with autism in terms of knowing I was autistic, because I got to unmask. Well, unfortunately I was forced to unmask. It was very traumatic actually, but they got to see an autistic adult regulating themselves, and I think that was really helpful for like teachers and parents to see too, and just be more, you know, accommodating of their kids. So I really loved that. Again, and I was really skillful at my job. I made a lot of progress, and I really viewed, again, my worth and value as a person. Like my confidence was coming from being a high performer at my job in terms of what I did and how effective what I was doing was. So I wasn't masking anymore, but I was still very not confident, or rather my self-esteem and confidence came from my performance, right? And so what I really enjoyed doing in particular as well was like I started really researching autism and ADHD. I have ADHD as well, I realized at that time. I started really researching it and giving professional development presentations to school boards. And so I was just really passionate about trying to educate people and give them information specifically to like put accommodations up in their classroom, stop using certain types of terminology, and just like an education of like what's happening. So that made me really happy. That very much felt like very purposeful in my life. But now I've just come to the realization that's just more like an innate skill I have of like education, where since that's something I'm already good at, that's not like my purpose in life. But my purpose more so, I realize now, is like for me to have a good time, because I was still putting my worth and confidence on what I put out into the world, how other people see me, how I make them feel, what information I can give them. But I didn't put any value, like as much as how I feel. Like even the value I put into my own well-being was, okay, I'm gonna figure out how to feel good so I can tell other people how to feel good. Like that felt like the reason for me feeling good. So at this time, I also did start, since like 2021, like occasionally, not constantly having suicidal ideation. Like I felt like I really do want to live because I want to heal and I want to figure out what's going on and help other people. Like I felt like that's something I could sustainably do and like a goal for me in life. So that felt like reason enough to live, because I didn't have any reason to live after high school, because I'm like, well, I completed it. It was so fucking exhausting. I never want to do anything again. Like, I'm done. Please take me out. So I was in such a state of still when I was by myself. When I was by myself, I was so dissociative, just constantly watching social media and different streaming services to kind of just like fill my time. Like I couldn't be alone by myself without all my just really terrible intrusive thoughts, and I didn't feel like a person. Like I would start just feeling guilt and shame for everything I'm doing. I never felt like a person when I was alone. And when I was around other people, I felt like a person for other people still, right? So that continued until my spiritual awakening in 2024 when I was 27, almost 2 years ago now. And it's just so exciting. So at that point in time, I had an injury. I did a whole video explaining it. I had an injury that led to my spiritual awakening, and for 3 weeks I had no mental or physical health symptoms, which I had my whole life, or at least since the age of 4. So I was living my best life. I was incredible, and it was like everything just dropped. Everything was peaceful and wonderful and beautiful, and I never had any hope of actually being healed. I only had hope of maintaining my physical and mental health, but not necessarily it like getting better. Like just how I was like allowing myself to stim and use fidget toys now, the best I thought I could do for myself was accommodate myself. But interestingly enough, I stopped stimming like almost entirely during those 3 weeks, because I realized while everyone stims, regardless of if you're autistic or not, for me a lot of it was not coming from excitement, but it was coming from anxiety, and it was how I was regulating my anxiety. And since I experienced no anxiety for those 3 weeks, I stopped stimming, which was something I needed to constantly do. Like I was constantly moving, constantly doodling, just constantly doing something, and that made me more be able to like pay attention more. So especially with like ADHD. So it was just really interesting. And so after that, I really wanted to get back to where I was, and things started shifting very rapidly. Like in particular, I really healed my relationship with food, and like with my body, and I just had this huge goal. Like basically in October, so like 6 months after this, I started setting intentions, which all my intentions were about removing any physical or mental health symptoms and adding just peace, tranquility, fulfillment, and like presenceness, like being present in my life. So after that, I went through an intense period of time of like shadow work and listening to my altars and just really like figuring out who I am, or more so who I'd become. It wasn't truly me, but like all this conditioning and trauma made me be. But still, I never felt comfortable when I was alone with myself. Instead, I was just sitting in the discomfort because I wasn't able to dissociate anymore. So there was no freedom. There was no respite from the pain I was in. So it actually felt so much worse than before my spiritual awakening, because now I could feel it all, and it was just all there, and it was absolutely horrific. So yeah, after that, again, I couldn't mask since 2021. This is 2024, and I still didn't feel confident. And I just went on this long journey for, 2024 and 2025 of purging everything that wasn't aligned to me. So this really takes me up until spring of 2025, where I made a separate video talking about how I healed my intrusive thoughts and my DID. This was like a really intensive 3-month period where I completely purged all my intrusive thoughts. It was incredible, right? And that did take that like year and a half leading up to it of shadow work and growing a relationship with my alters. So after that, like the summer of 2025 was the first time in my life that I didn't have all that. I felt like a completely like blank slate. Like I didn't know who I was, but I now knew who I wasn't. So previous to this, like at the start, or maybe more like March of 2025, I did, for those 3 months I was like purging my intrusive thoughts. I also started reading The Artist's Way, which I want to maybe do a shorter like TikTok video about. But The Artist's Way really helped me, and it's for everyone, not just people who create specific art, but we just are art. We do art in our living lives, how we live. And it really helped me like connect and just like try things out. Like they had like artist date, like try taking yourself on a date, try just doing things, like figuring out how can I pour into me. Because also at this point in time, at 25, I stopped dating people, and I really regained a relationship with myself where I'm like, honestly, like after 2 years, I'm like, if I never date anyone again, that's fine, because I feel so like comfortable just wanting to live for me, which was just a huge relief. But I still didn't know how to like pour into myself. I just knew how to not live for other people, basically. But I didn't know like what I liked. I didn't know what I enjoyed. And so I started doing things I used to like and trying new things and like reassessing specifically over last summer, 2025, of like, what do I actually like to do? And I took kind of a break from spirituality at this point and really poured more into my physical, and I poured into things I like doing, of dancing and singing. I love puzzles, I love walking, I love nature, I love pictures. And like I also rewatched like everything I watched like in my childhood and as a teenager and a young adult. I rewatched everything. And I'm still rewatching some things right now, like all the old TV shows, all the old movies. Like specifically in August, like I stopped even just trying to be productive, because again, even though I wasn't interacting with life how I used to be, because I stopped working. I had to stop working due to my mental and physical health, basically, at the start of 2025. So I wasn't working anymore, but I was trying to repair everything still. And it's almost like I had this goal of pouring into myself that I was viewing it as a job I wasn't enjoying, basically, and like really judge myself like, well, how many things am I doing in a day? Well, when am I sleeping? Well, am I present enough? Well, am I dysregulated? Well, am I talking to myself kindly? And it was so tedious and painful, and I was judging myself so much, and I had such a lack of confidence because I never felt like I was doing enough. I never felt like I was doing enough for myself. And so I felt so much shame and guilt. And so it wasn't really until the summer that I was pouring into myself. And so what happened specifically, like having a spiritual awakening for me, I started communicating with a lot of spirit guides and my ancestors, my higher self. And what I came to realize very heavily by this time of last summer is that the divine can hear every single thought you have. They can hear all your thoughts. They can feel all the feelings in your body, and they can interact with it in a quantum way instantaneously. So for me, I was having a lot of auditory cues, both in my home environment and animals around my outside environment, that would immediately tell me if I'm having a thought that doesn't serve me. A lack mindset, panic, anxiety. So there since like February of 2025, there wasn't a moment that my thoughts were not heavily being continuously monitored by spirits, basically, like, which my higher self clearly like agreed to. Like, I would cry sometimes and just want it to stop, and it would stop if I wanted it to, but then I'm like, wait, I actually do want the feedback. I actually do want to heal, and this is actually so helpful because, like, now I at least know what's going on. So, and that's still happening to this day. It's not something that has stopped, or probably won't ever stop, to be honest. So, it was so intense because at the same time that I was finally gaining my confidence and, like, feeling like I could because I was unmasked by myself, but I was just a blank slate at this time because, again, I couldn't mask since 2021. So even though I wasn't masking, I was just heavily dissociating. But then since my spiritual awakening, I couldn't dissociate. So I was just like in pain and trying to distract myself. So now I wasn't trying to distract myself, and I wasn't even in pain anymore by the summer. My mental and physical health had healed. I wasn't even in pain anymore. I was just by myself and felt so insecure because the divine, everyone and everything, was watching what I was doing, could hear all my thoughts, could hear all my insecurity, and it was just such an intense way to gain my confidence that I basically, because I would feel insecure around other people, like what they're thinking, so now I was gaining intrapersonal confidence, me by myself confidence, with the awareness that spiritually everyone is aware of how I feel, what I think, and what I'm doing. So this was so intense that I think, even though this was so frustrating and difficult to do, but I think it really helped me because I basically had to just be like, fuck that. Even if I make a million mistakes and I'm dysregulated, I'm committed to having a good time. I'm committed to pouring into myself, even if I feel silly. Because it's not like the divine was judging me. It's not like any spirit was judging me per se. That I continue to work with, that is. However, it was still just a lot to know that they could hear my thoughts. And so that really helped me overcome my insecurity and just feel so much confidence in myself. So, because I also just had purged a bunch of lack mindsets. And so basically I got to the point of knowing it's a continuous journey, having self-compassion for myself, and instead of judging myself on how well I'm doing that day, and that's how I feel about myself, just giving myself unconditional love, which I so much built up in those 3 months prior of purging my intrusive thoughts, because I just loved all the thoughts. I just loved them, and that's what helped them go away. And so now I've just really come to a point where, you know, I am creating, you know, content here on YouTube and on TikTok as well. And interestingly enough, when I created on Instagram before, I don't have an Instagram anymore, I mostly did makeup videos, which I never got, surprisingly, I never got any critique or like hate for, basically. However, I did singing videos as well, and I almost exclusively got like criticism and just very rude comments for, which was confusing to me because I'd only been like praised for my singing voice beforehand. And anyways, it was just a very confusing time, so I felt very insecure. And so now, like, it was basically I couldn't unlock my singing voice at that time because I was so insecure, so I was like closing myself off to myself. And that's just something I'm really excited to, I mean, we're always just learning and growing to like be continuing to open up. And so that was a really huge deal for me too, like this last year posting on TikTok a couple videos of me singing, understanding now, because like now I can actually watch my videos without cringing, basically, because I've just gotten rid of the response of cringing. Like, it still comes up, but it just fades out, and I just have so much love for myself. Like, I used to judge myself in the past, or for what I used to wear, what I used to look like, especially how I used to act, because I used to act in very unkind ways, unfortunately, in some of my romantic relationships as a young adult. And so I really hated how I acted in those ways specifically, because it was very immoral how I was acting. But being able to love that version of myself, not not say it was okay, but that helped me love the versions of myself that aren't morally wrong. They just might be judged by other people, but I don't want to judge myself in general, and I don't want to put other people's perceptions on me to judge myself. And so that helped me post whatever videos I want to do. And I had insecurity about makeup for a while too, because I realized I thought wearing face makeup and not just eye or lip makeup, like, I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore because I used to do it because I was insecure about my acne, but I realized I wasn't allowing myself to wear face makeup. So like there was just a lot of like this pendulum swing of like doing things to prove I'm not insecure versus doing things I genuinely enjoy and not feeling insecure about it. Again, insecurity comes, but I let it pass through and I continue to interact with things in a loving way. So now what I do is I rewatch my videos, regardless of what I'm doing, before I post them, and I just not only practice, because I practice enough, but I just feel genuine love and adoration for myself, not based on how I look, not based on what I'm saying, not based on how I sound when I sing or how I look when I dance or whatever, but just because I love myself. I love everything, I love everyone, and that isn't to say, oh, I don't want to improve in certain ways, or to genuinely, take a step back and take accountability for my actions. But that doesn't stop me from loving every single version of myself in the moment. And so now that's where I am, that I feel there's also a lot with confidence with my social anxiety. I did a video about it about November in particular that helped my social anxiety, and that was kind of the end so far of like my improvement, like since really January of this year, 2026. Like it's all sorted, it's all taken care of physically and mentally, and I feel so confident. I feel like I know who I am. I feel excited to grow and change, and that doesn't feel like a threat to who I am right now. I feel calm and confident being by myself. I love being with myself. I love what I watch. I love what I create. I love how I interact with things and with people. And I just feel confident. I don't feel like I need to prove myself to anyone or anything. And I feel so incredible. And I feel so grateful to have gotten to this place where it's not just the idea of self-compassion or the wanting to get there or the healing to get there, but that I am healed and that I am there and that I embody self-compassion, and it's just a solid constant in my life now. So that is the story of how I unmasked my autism, which really was unfortunately like by force with that autistic burnout. But also how I gained confidence in my life, and it was a really tough journey, and I'm so excited for where I am now, and I'm so excited to see how things continue to grow and change around me now, because I know I have such a solid internal foundation that I can really sustainably hold things in my external life now. And I love myself, and I wish to lead by example and showing people that the more you sit in your authenticity and love yourself and love every version of you, even if it wasn't authentic, that by just having compassion for yourself, you can have compassion for others, and you can live in authenticity. And that's what I want to spread with my energy and throughout the world.